You know, with everything going on here, this story has sort of gotten lost in the sauce, but it could, and I'm taking the leap here, become a bit of a constitutional crisis because the president wants to send up to 4,000 troops, National Guards, and more to the point, to the border. Now, a couple of those border states, and they're not all on the border, for example, Oregon's governor against it, California's governor not responding to it. So that would represent kind of a first where governors who normally nod and accept whatever a president wants to do when it comes to sending troops, in this case on the border. For example, Barack Obama didn't run into any resistance. George Bush didn't run into any resistance. This president running into lots of resistance here. So where is all of this going? To Daily Caller editorial director Vince Coglianese and retired Navy Captain Chuck Nash. So Captain Nash, to you first. Is this the making of a crisis here or what?
Well, it could be, depending on how much the governors really want to dig in their heels and fight this president. But it certainly would be you know, quite a thing, and it's something that they would have to answer for politically within their own state. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. I think this is a negotiation matter, and they're just trying to throw a little face out there in the face of all this DACA talk.
Vince, what do you think?
I think it's demagoguery on the part of these governors, especially in Oregon, because this is simply because they don't like President Trump. This is ridiculous because, again, when President Obama makes a request for this, everyone jumps. I mean, President Trump has some options here. He could federalize the National Guard and take it out of the hands of the governors to make a decision like that, but it shouldn't have to come to that. These governors should respect their citizens and the sovereignty of the United States and do their part to help protect the border.
Captain, I'm understanding the chain of events here. I'm not sure what precipitated what, but one of the issues was this so-called caravan coming from Honduras. That caravan was broken up, so you could make the argument that that is no longer a reason to send the troops. The president, I think, and his people have said the caravan really had nothing to do with that, but the timing is what has got the Oregon governor saying, no, I'm not going along. What is it with the timing that bugs her?
I think it's because there's been, I think the number's like 37% increase in attempted illegal border crossings just in the last month, and a triple-digit increase over the last year. So this is clearly a problem. It hasn't been addressed, and the border wall is a frustration for the president because he looks at it as, look, if you're in a leaking boat, you can bail and bail and bail, but until you fix the leak, you're not going to solve the problem, and you're just going to drown tired. So you've got to seal the border. You've got to control the the illegal flow into the country. And as Vince points out, there are several ways to do this. With the National Guard, you can state active duty them, which means the governor controls it and the state pays for it. You can, under Title 32 of U.S. Code, you can activate them and the feds pay for it, but the governors still maintain control, and it's in a combined task force command structure. Or Title 10, which is where the president and the Pentagon call the state and say, hey, we're activating these guys, and I can deploy them worldwide under presidential authority.
You know, Vince, if I can look at the political side of this, I think the president is very worried that if there are any issues that matter to his base, it's the wall. It's building the wall. Whether Mexicans do it, we do it, and it's not getting done. I know he's committed funds, gotten funds from that $1.3 trillion spending package. I think it's $1.6 billion that will be forwarded for that effort. But it's not nearly enough, and he's worried that his base is getting ticked off. What do you think?
Yeah, he's concerned, and he should be concerned about that. And he should be concerned not just about the political implications, but the need for the security of the border. Whether, I mean, it really comes down to, it doesn't matter if you think a wall's the right way to do it. The truth is the border needs to be secure. It's porous in a way that's really hurting the country. And it's not just people who are getting into the country. The president points out over and over, there are drugs coming into the country. The majority of the heroin that flows into the United States comes from Mexico. We have an opioid crisis that's killing literally the equivalent of a Vietnam War worth of Americans every single year in the United States. So with those numbers in mind, there's a whole bunch of reasons to make sure the border is secure, other than just ensuring that illegal immigrants don't get across it. Yeah. I think he's got a lot of people to answer to here, including the people who elected him, and they want to see him get something done.
Captain, I'm also wondering along that theme if the president is trying out a different approach. If they're not going to let me get moving on this wall, I'm going to get moving on having more guardsmen troops down where I want that wall, and that might be the best I can do for the time being.
Yeah, and it's, you know, Neil, if you build the wall, yeah, there's a maintenance cost to upkeep and everything, but if you use manpower, that's the most expensive way to do anything. So you start putting troops down there. Now all of a sudden you look at the employment situation in this country. It's not like there are a lot of people idle around that have time to go spend at the Guard and the Reserve. You start activating these State Guard and Reserve, you're taking people away from their families and businesses that right now are looking for skilled labor. And some of the best and brightest we have are these guardsmen and reservists who are dedicating their time to do what they can while still staying at home, and they're subject to recall and being sent to active duty anywhere in the world. So we have to protect them as well as the overall country. And I think a border protection system that includes a physical barrier, the Israelis have proved this, it works, lots of countries have done it. It's time to step up and just bite the bullet and do it.
All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you both.